It's after Hatzot, after midday, so there's a bit more that we're allowed to say today. But it's not a regular day. So we are restricted in what we're allowed to say and how happy we can be and the ideas that we share. But I will open with this, and I mentioned this last night. It's very possible that Tish'a BeAb is expressive of the deepest love that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that God has for us. Because it's the one time of year that we don't make any compromises. Every other time of year, we compromise. Even on Yom Kippur, we make compromises. We come to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for example, on Yom Kippur, and we say, look, Rabbano Sha'olam, we can't afford you. And I fell short a few times. Maybe more than a few times throughout the year. So I wasn't able to afford you. And I'm coming to you on this day, and I'm asking you to forgive my lack of capacity to. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes, okay, fine. כי ביום הזה יכפר עליכם לטהר אתכם מכל חטאותיכם. That's what the day is for. We look the other way. We address the issues, okay? At least you admitted the issue. And we can move on. And so Yom Kippur is spoken to us in the Torah. It's a day that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is shochen itam betoch tumotam. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu lives with us in our filth. It's literal. It's literally what it is. He lives with us in what it is that we do. And then there's this day. This day is a day that there are no compromises. We don't keep things going on Tish'a BeAb when they can't go anymore. We don't keep things going on Tish'a BeAb when they're not working. And so it's a day that commemorates, more than commemorates, it's a day that lives the elements in our lives that aren't working, and where we stare at them dead on. We look at them directly. We stare and acknowledge and absorb the fact that what I thought was working isn't. And that what I imagined was a saving grace for my life isn't. And I sit on the floor. And I change my shoes and I stop eating. And I get as real as I can. I take away all distractions as much as I can, so I can come back to the core of what it is that I'm about and what tools I used to try and get there. It didn't work. So it's not a happy day. I don't mean to bring the room down, but it is Tish'a BeAb after all. So that's what we're supposed to be thinking about today. And already after midday we can sit on chairs. We can start thinking about Nehama. And the relationship of Nehama to Avelut. Avelut is coming to terms with the realities. That's what Avelut is. It's coming to terms with the hardcore realities that may be painful, but the truth is that I nonetheless experience, no matter how painful they may be. But Nehama, which we are allowed to begin speaking about after midday. Nehama is now that you have acknowledged what has changed. Now that we have absorbed in our lives what is different and what hasn't worked, how do we move forward? The thing is that we cannot begin to discuss Nehama until we accept the Avelut. Nehama is not recovering, and literally meaning covering up again what was exposed to us as a reality. Nehama is, now that I've exposed what is a reality, how do I move forward with the new reality, with understanding what's new. So I'd like to look at it with you a bit, if that's all right. There's this thing that keeps coming up on the day. Hachamim talk about it a lot. And it's this concept of chinam. Chinam literally means valueless, has no value. So when I want to say that something's free, in Hebrew I say it's chinam, because it means it has no value, therefore requires no exchanging of value. You can just take it. So it's weird because the Hachamim use this word all over the place on Tish'a BeAb. First place that they use it is on the core, the beginnings of the day. And the day didn't begin when the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. The day began long before that. The Beit HaMikdash was only destroyed as a symptom of where the day began. The day began, of course, when the spies were sent in by Moshe Rabbeinu into the land. It's all about the land, isn't it? Are we on the land? Are we off the land? Do we love the land? Is it not? It's all the question, all comes back. So he was sending people into the land for the first time since we had left the land with Yaakov, our father, and our siblings coming down to Egypt. And we had grown into a great nation, Vayirbu, Vayatzmu, B'meod meod, Batimale ha'aretz otam. And the people grew and became plentiful. And they filled the land. It just wasn't our land. But we had become familiar with it. It had become all that we knew. Egypt was home. But we left Egypt and we were on our way, and it was just, a few days' journey. And we get to the threshold of the land of our forefathers, and Moshe says we better figure out what we've got managed, what we have to manage over there. We're going to do a reconnaissance mission. I'm going to send in one person from each tribe. You go in, take a look, let us know how things are going. I'd prefer if you come to me and Aharon when you get back. Want to hear what's going on, then we'll be able to present it to the people. And they'd send the people in, they go in, 40 days, 40 nights. They spend going all over the land, and they come back. They don't go straight to Moshe, they go to the people, they go like this, they come to you, stand the mic, and they tell the people, the land to which Moshe has brought us, it's a good land. A lot of good stuff in it. As a matter of fact, Zepirya, look at this fantastic produce we brought back. Grapes and all that. And as people are eating it and enjoying it, and they say, Ephes! Ephes is the word that's used. Ephes meaning 0. Which is a number that we use to express lack of value, right? So they say, Ephes, it's all meaningless, of no value. All that fruit that you're eating, enjoy it now because it's useless. We can't go in there. There's big people there, they've got all kinds of fortitudes, cities that are sealed up to the heavens. It is an Eretz Ocheret Yoshveha. It's a land that eats its inhabitants. Moses has duped you all. Better we go back to Egypt. We know Egypt. It's familiar. We don't want to go there. It's going to require all kinds of strength and war and all of that. So we better turn around. Mass pandemonium. Crying. Distress. Upset, lamentations. Looks like Tish'a BeAb. As a matter of fact, it was Tish'a BeAb. It was Tish'a BeAb. So the Hachamim say on that occurrence It's unfortunate that that was the response. It's unfortunate because it wasn't necessary. The response itself had no real value. It existed in a vacuum. HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised Avraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov, sent Moshe Rabbeinu into Egypt, challenged one of the most powerful kings in the world, brought out all types of miracles. Ubnei Israel yotzim biyad ramah, and the people of Israel came out with a hand outstretched, powerfully, triumphantly out of their land, going back home. It was a no-brainer. You're going back home. Kadosh Baruch Hu is leading you by cloud during the day, pillar of fire by night, in case you thought you needed like signals of some sort. Took care of all of that. So not only do you have historical context, you had political success, and you had a bit of a sound and light show to help for the little kids. And we're on the threshold. And the response back is, it's a no-go. Efes. It's a 0. Go back home. Home? Thought that was home. No, we mean the real home, Egypt. Go back to Egypt. So the Hachamim say you cried for Hinam. This Hinam. There was no real reason to cry. Was it going to be an easy cakewalk? Maybe not. Maybe the most important things in our lives come at a price because they have value. They're valuable, which means that require a price. It requires some level of exchange, a recognition of value. It's why we might, in our better moments, not simply give things to our children, but rather have them earn. Not because we don't want to give it to them, not because we don't want them to enjoy, but because we want them to know value. That life shouldn't be a life simply of hinam. So the response is, as far as the Achamim are concerned, the Kadosh Baruch Hu basically turns to Israel and says, I have to teach you value. Because you're not sensing the value. And so we'll go through a system and where we can learn the value. What creates value? Context. Context creates value. And the value will depend on the nature of the context, depending on how broad the context is. So what is valuable to you or me may not be valuable to someone who doesn't share my mutual context with you. So if I pull out a British pound, you might think it's cute. It doesn't really help you very much currently, today, at this moment. It doesn't hold the same value. Now you might find somebody who is related to the context from which I brought it, that is prepared to recognize its value on some level, perhaps not exactly the same, and therefore exchange the value for you and provide for you some other type of value that does work in the context within which you're living. But the reality is that there is no such thing as there of inherent value. We always assume a context. It may just be so broad that we don't always talk about it all the time. So there may be things that we feel is inherently valuable, like life, depending on whose it is. Health. But think about it, do those things not have context? Is it not just that the context is tremendously broad, subsuming all of humanity? And so we as human beings share that broad context and therefore think of our lives in that manner? Do we not know human beings who don't value life? People who are prepared to risk their lives, poor choice of, to lose their lives for any and everything. I don't mean that in a noble way. I'm talking about people who strap bombs onto themselves. People who will raise children to do so. We look in astonishment at how is it that they don't value. It's all a question of context. So there's an ultimate context that Israel is meant to think about and be aware of. We call that simply the place. It's the ultimate place. It's the way that we refer to God. We call HaKadosh Baruch Hu the Makom. Right? It's a weird name for God, really, when you think about it. It's not exactly, it doesn't hold that much of an oomph. Master, Lord, that's, but then we call him place. But that's what we call him. As a matter of fact, we will use that word when we want to console people in a state of avilut. Hamakom Yenachem. We'll say, Sfaradim will say, Tinahamu min hashamayim. What do you mean min hashamayim? Yeah, you need to get it from the shamayim at this point. One needs to see oneself within the context of an entire world, an entire universe, see oneself within the context of full life in order to be able to sense value, meaning. So there's this problem because we are living in a world in where context is constantly attacked. Value is attacked. I'll explain. When one experiences a situation where context is there, right? It doesn't matter how big or how small. It could be your home. There might be your home may have its own context. So people say, when you're in my house, these are the rules. You're 18, go up, when you're not here, you're in my house. Why does your house make a difference? Why? Because you're in my house, this is the context, and things are defined based on that context. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu does the same thing for us. But we are in a world where there is no house. There is no situation in where we can all point to and say, okay, when we are in this environment. And I want to take a minute to look at why that is. Because we live in a world where there are no walls anymore. In order to be able to have a context, we require coordinates, don't we? Right? I mean, don't I need to delineate where the place begins and ends? I need to know where I am. And once I know where I am, I know my coordinates. When I know my coordinates, I know my value. It's like playing Battleship. Remember that game? I was the worst at that game. You have to figure it out, so you try to hone in on it. A4, right? No, not even close. But I'm trying to figure out my coordinates. And on a certain level, it's what we're all trying to do, isn't it? Don't I want to understand where I belong? So from the minute that I'm a child and I'm conscious of my own life, I'm trying to figure out where I belong. It starts very narrowly. When I'm an infant, I just want to understand what my extremities are. Like, where does that begin and end? Oh, here's a hand. Look at that. Look at that. There's a hand. And that's where we go. We move. And then I find the other things. I find things I can hold. Drop them. See how they work, right? This bounces. That one doesn't. This one cracks. Buzz. Makes mommy very upset. All kinds of things. We learn our coordinates. What works and what doesn't. Where I'm allowed to say, what I'm not allowed to say. Can I say to you the following? You try when you're a kid. What can I say to my parents? You either get whack, or don't talk to me that way, I'm your father, or that kind of a thing, or nothing. And then it's nothing. When it's chinam, what does that do? Well, it didn't matter, did it? I just called my father a donkey and it didn't matter. Wonder what does matter? And that never ends. A child begins life testing. When do I matter? What is my value? Where is it okay? When isn't it okay? Why do I want to know that? It defines my life. It tells me who I am. And so if I have no walls and no coordinates, and there are no value systems, and I therefore cannot get a value to save my life, literally, I can't get a value for myself. Because there's nothing to push against. There's nothing to tell me where it is that I exist. I make my own. And that's where we're at. We're making our own. If you're not making your own, your kids are, or the kids that you know are, they're making their own. Which is all they've got. I mean, they've got to do it. There's no other alternatives. So I'll take a picture of myself if I can't get somebody to take a picture of me. Or if I'm in a place, I'll just take a picture of myself because just take a picture of myself. Call it a selfie. And I'll set up my own pages and my own interactions. I will show you what it is that I want you to see of myself. I will build my coordinates. But I will not live without them. And so I'll build my coordinates. I'll start my Instagram and whatever, and I put out my pictures, and you can even roll through and you kind of get a sense of who I am based on what it is that I choose to show you about me. That's what I do. But we are living in a world where there are no real external contexts anymore. And I think it's a good thing. They had to break down. Because the contexts that we were building weren't real. My favorite example, you know my favorite example? My Talmidim know my favorite example. My favorite example is the library. You remember that? The library? You know, for those, I don't know, probably lost 50% of the audience. Used to be this thing called the library. And when you had to find information, you would go to this place because it housed information in books, in the form of books. Then when it got really exciting, they had computer stuff and whatever. Never worked. So they have this big house of books, and you would go in to try and find the appropriate book. And you would go to what was called a card catalog. This was before it was computerized. You go to a card catalog, and you would find in these cards a card that represented a book, a real one, that was supposed to be on a shelf, that wasn't. But you would hope that it was. And you would tell them, when you get it in, please let me know. So you go in, then you find the book, you open this book, and there's chapters. And you had to look through the chapters and figure out which chapters has the information that you want. You had to read through it and get out a highlighter, except you couldn't because it was a library book, so you find out, and then sometimes you would, and it wasn't, Highlight the information, write it down, try to get it all together. Piece by piece, bit by bit, you get a sense of, okay, where should this information be, and so on. This is how we lived. It was a nightmare. It was so much of a nightmare that my oldest son, not my youngest son, my oldest son, my youngest son, I would have completely broken down into a puddle of sadness and despair. My oldest son just fell short of that. My oldest son, I took him to the library because his teacher decided to become a vindictive, evil teacher and told the child, you are to do an assignment without the internet. Yes. Can you believe this? So I take my child and say, Ezra, pull yourself together. We will do this. I take him into the library. It's loud there. I have never in my life experienced a library. People are talking. Anyway, so I bring him into this library, go through the whole thing. He's crying. I'm serious. I'm not exaggerating. Crying, nervous, getting very nervous about the fact of which book does he read, how does he choose the information. He knows the whole time that he's going through this, that he can type one word into Google and get pages and pages of information. There's only one problem with that information. It has no value. You never know where you're getting it from. What does it mean? But there was a problem because the library was an artificial context. Dewey decided what was important and what wasn't, how much space should be given to something and how it shouldn't, where things should be categorized and where they shouldn't. You know what, Dewey? What if I didn't like the way that you organized it? We are living in a world today where it doesn't matter how anybody organizes anything. I organize. Everything is miscellaneous. I can't stress that enough. Everything is miscellaneous. And the only time that it finds any type of category is when I categorize it. So we are living in the age of Chinam. We are living in an age where there is no detail embedded in any reliable, objective context. And it drives us mad. It drives us crazy. Because we can't find a pivotal position. No matter what it is that I say. It's you say, not I say. It's how you feel about it, not how I feel about it. So we'll watch a president make deals that look insane to the rest of it. Okay, but look, if you look at it from this perspective, that's how it looks. But I'm not looking at it. I'm looking at that perspective. Okay, but I'm looking at it. Look at my perspective. There's no pivot point. There's no objective context that any one of us can stand by and say, okay, now we have our coordinates down. Let's talk. There's no coordinates. That's over. The age of coordinates are over. It's over. So this is Chinam. And the question is, so what do you do? Because it affects everything. You think it doesn't affect Torah and mitzvot? It absolutely does. You think mitzvot are inherently valuable? Are mitzvot valuable in and of themselves? No, they are not. Mitzvot also need context. And here's the hard part. I'm sorry about what I'm about to tell you. Mitzvot need context. It is possible to do a mitzvah and have it not be a mitzvah. But it looks like one, and it sounds like one, and I followed all of the rules, and still it could not be a mitzvah. And it's the hardest thing for us to understand. Because we are so trained to look at the details and not the context within which they come. I'm going to explain to you how in a second. But we are trained to look at the details. You ever have a situation where you're texting somebody and you have to really quickly put in some kind of an emoji so that they get what you're saying? Like, ever have that? Like when you're driving, which you should not be texting and driving. It's not a joke. But let's say you're texting and you send a line out and you didn't put the emoji with it, and now you can't send the next line to qualify what it is that you just said. Is it only me in this situation? Yes? Wow, I'm doing something wrong. You know what I'm talking about. You say something to somebody. You're critical, maybe you're about cynical, maybe you're making a joke, but you're not 100% sure that it's a joke on the other end. Does it sound, is he joking? Was he not joking? And you have to put a little smiley emoji after it. You understand what I'm talking about. And that's why you can't put the phone down, because if you put something out like that and you don't know if they understood what you say, you didn't say, you got to get out of like 4 emojis in a row. You have to send a battery of them in order to be able. So I'm smiling, then there's the funny, embarrassing face, and then there's the hands of thumbs up and the whole thing. I get that all out there just to make sure you understand what I'm saying. You understand what I'm talking about. That's called context. And how much we fear text without context. Because I will be misunderstood. And I'll get into a situation in where people will say, you said. No, I didn't say, but didn't you see the smiley face? Oh, that one didn't come through. And you look at your message failed to send. And that kills us. Why? Because it's the only thing I've got. That one smiley emoji is the only thing I've got to qualify the information that I just sent, which will break down 17 years of friendship. It'll take me a week and a half to explain. Look at my phone, the message didn't send. Take a picture of the screen, send it over, that didn't send. Whole thing. But think for a minute. What is the whole situation? The whole situation is a question of the context, not the text. What do we do? Context with text. And we all have a tremendous sense of anxiety when I send something that is pure text and the context is questionable. We rely generally on the fact that I know who's talking to me, and therefore I assume where this is coming from. But sometimes it's a gray area, isn't it? And that's not okay. All of us understand that. It's not okay for the words to simply exist on their own, because the context that the receiver will put on it will not be the context that I meant for it. You know who that happens with all the time? God and us. He texted us too. The Torah. Whole bunch of text. But there is context in the Torah. It's supposed to be understood in a certain way. You know where this hit me the most? It was like a shock. It was years ago. I was surfing around on the Vatican website. And they had like a whole section of scripture. Like, oh, it's scripture. So I'm looking through the scripture, and I'm seeing that they have pirush on the scripture. They have explanations on the scripture. And it was like being slugged in the stomach, for me anyway. Because these are pisukim that I've known my whole life. Text that I have known my whole life and that I had always understood in a particular way. And all of a sudden I was reading about Jesus and Mother Mary, as implied in these words. And I thought, how could they? And I realized, well, it's just text. And the context is all up for grabs. So we assume that when we read the text of the Torah, that we get what it is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying. Or for that matter, when we read the text of the Talmud, that we get what it is that the Achamim were saying. And Harambam points this out. In the beginning of the Shmona Perakim, he says, you know, when I tell you something is from Hazal, you won't believe me. Because you read it like a Muslim. This is his words. So your framework is Muslim framework, because you live with the Muslims, and so when you read the words of the Achamim, you interpret it from a Muslim mind. I'm telling you from a Jewish place. This is what the Achamim mean. So meaning and value, that makes a difference. So when HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaks, he assumes that it is understood in a particular context. What is that context? It can't be given over in 1 second, but I'll tell you this. Look at Parashat Yitro. Before the first line of text is given to Israel, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe, I want you to go down, tell the people this. Ko tomar lebet Yaakov v'taged lebnei Israel. Ko tomar, says Rashi, lo pachot v'lo yoter. Nothing more, nothing less. Give this to them. Let them hear this before any line of text comes their way. This is my emoji. It's a big red heart. You know that one, right? And the kissy face with the heart kiss. You know the kissy. That's what I want you to say to them. Tell them this. You are my people, and I am your God. And I took you out of Egypt on the wings of eagles. V'hitem li segula mikol ha'amim, and you will be a treasure for me among all the nations of the world. And I will love you. That's the context. And everything that you hear from me from here on in, you should hear it in that context. Not because I need you to jump through hoops for me, or because I feel that I need you to do these things, and that I'm demanding to see how much you'll listen to me, and that's only in terms of how much you listen to me is how much I'll accept you. I already love you. I love your grandfather, Abraham. And I love you because you're his children. You know how you would feel if you had somebody who you loved to the depth of your heart, and all of a sudden one day you saw a group of kids, and in that group of kids somebody told you, that's so-and-so's grandson. You wouldn't immediately have an affection for the child? Then if the child started acting in ways that did not resemble his grandfather in any way, shape, or form, it may shut down. But the initial response, that so-and-so's grandson, granddaughter, you immediately have a love for that person, simply because they are the grandchild of that person who you love so deeply with your heart. So tell them, Moshe, that the following words are to be understood in that context. We're not doing these things because they need to get something out of me, because I need them to find my approval, or any of those things. It's because I love them. It's what we say every day. Love him not because he needs it. Love him because it is what is meaningful to you in your life. It's life. Because you need the love, not because you need him to help you in whatever it is that you're doing. So where this breaks down is when we then accept mitzvot, and all we look at is the text, and we forget the context. And we set up situations in where we get these things done because we're so clear on the text. We can tell you every word of the text. We can tell you what everybody said on every word of the text. We can get so focused on the details of the text that we completely and utterly forget the context, which was the big heart emoji that Moshe brought down from Sinai before anything was said. Ki ahevecha Adonai Elohecha. Because he loves you. And all he has ever asked is for love in return. And what is a mitzvah? But an opportunity. A chance to engage in a loving relationship. These are opportunities that you can connect. So when we do a mitzvah in some other context, outside of that, it's not a mitzvah. I know that that's very hard to hear, but it isn't. The Rambam makes this very explicit in Hilchot Teshuvah. He writes in the 7th perek of Hilchot Teshuvah and the 7th halacha of the 7th perek, for those who wish to look it up. He talks about Teshuvah. And he talks about Teshuvah's context. Being connected, engaged with God. That's Teshuvah. Return. What's return? Return to what? Return to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to my life, to what I'm about, what the whole story was about in the first place. Returning back to the appropriate place, to the makom. That's Teshuvah. So when a person is in Teshuvah, Harambam says, how great is Teshuvah? Just yesterday, when a person was not in the place, he says, Tzorek ve'eno ne'ina. A person will call out, no answer. Oseh mitzvot. They would do mitzvot, torfin otam befanav, they rip them up. Harsh words, nobody wants to hear that. I want to hear that after I did what I thought was a mitzvah that got ripped up, that I'm calling out in prayer and it's not being answered. And then he says, V'hayom, but today, in this place, in the place of Teshuvah, in the place where we're connected, where we realize that it's about the love and the relationship. In that place, Tzorek, a person calls out before they're done. There's a response. Tere mikrao, ani a'aneh. Before they're even done calling out, I answer them. Oseh mitzvot, a person does mitzvot, mekablim otam benachat, they accept them willingly. Not only willingly, but looking forward to it. And I always point out, in that halakha, it doesn't say just yesterday the person was doing averot. The person was doing sins or transgressions. It doesn't say that. It says yesterday they were doing mitzvot. Just torfin otam befanav, they were ripping them up. Ripping them up. Why? Because it was in the wrong context. Now you think that that's harsh? Think about your own lives and your own loving relationships. Imagine if the person that you love did a loving act towards you, but you knew that they didn't do it because they wanted to show their love for you, but because they knew they would get you to do something. Would you tolerate that? Would it be acceptable to you? Would it be the foundations upon which a strong, powerful relationship could be built? Depending on how one answers that question is how we are able to engage in this day. Because remember, it's a day of Hinam. Hinam means it is void of its context. And so HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Mi bikesh zot mikem remos hatzerai. Who asked you to come into my context? Who asked you to come into my framework and do the things that you think that it is that you're doing? And so there are very harsh statements of the Nevi'im about this. And what do the Nevi'im say? Mi ten v'izgor delatayim, just shut the doors down of the Mikdash already. You think I need your steaks? Your hamburgers, the ribs that the Kohanim are eating? This is what I'm looking for? I'm looking for barbecue? It's what you've got. So I'm saying, use what you've got. Bring it to me. It's like when your child, are they able to do Rembrandt in first grade? No. So what do they make you? They make what they can. It's what they've got. And they bring that to you. Is there anything more precious than that they bring that to you? This is what they were able to do, so you accept it. But now if the child infers, my mother loves Crayola, so I get her a box of crayons, or I just keep scribbling on papers and sending them in as necessary, kind of loses a little bit there, doesn't it? We have to think about this. Think about where in our lives we do it, how it is that we do it with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I'll tell you this. Normally I don't like to be, on a down note. Really I don't. And I don't think it helps us tremendously to be on down notes. But on one day we have to kind of look at the down elements really carefully. And from my perspective, it's not working anymore to check the boxes and call it a mitzvah. It's not working for people that I meet anymore. It's not working for our children. I really don't know how much it's working for us. And you know what? It really shouldn't be working. That we talk about a situation in terms of how many you've done instead of what the quality is. From where is it coming? Where is our heart and where is our mind when we're doing it? Those are the real questions. Really they are. Nobody will ask you. In your own relationships. Forget about Olam Haba. I don't know about Olam Haba. All I can talk about is our own relationships. Would I ever ask my child, how many gifts did you give me? How many hours do you spend? I just had I'm going to share a personal thing with you. I had a really great opportunity to spend a couple days with my daughter. She came with me to deal. She's off in camp now, but I was able to spend 2 days with my daughter. And I always feel guilty because I don't get enough time with my children. It's my fault mostly. That's my own mea culpa, my own... So I had an opportunity to spend 2 days with my daughter. And I'm going to tell you something. Those 2 days with my daughter were more valuable to me than spending 30 minutes with her every single day, which I don't get to spend. Frankly, I don't. I see her, we talk, but time that was quality. And where I was able to talk to her, she was able to talk to me, I was able to ask her, she was able to ask me. Time that was quality. One time like that, even in a year, even in 2, she and I will never forget. And it trumps all of the numbers because of its depth and where it came from. And if there's one thing that I could ask you to take from this day, from this talk, is that there's no difference between us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It works the same. I'm not saying don't go to shul every day, don't do mitzvot every day. What I'm saying is, when we go, be there. So you know what? If you don't go every day, you go once a week, maybe you go once a month, I don't know. It's not my business. It's between you and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When you're there, be there. As you would expect for the person that you love to be there when they're with you. When you do a mitzvah, don't worry about the numbers. I know, I'll probably get in trouble for saying that. But I'm saying it anyway. Don't worry about the numbers. Worry about the how. Where is the heart and where's the mind when we are doing it? And if I'm having trouble with the heart and mind, then learn about who you love. Because it makes a difference. Who is this God thing that we keep talking about all the time? That we keep saying Hashem, 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 Hashem. Who is that? What am I supposed to think when I say that? What am I relating to when I talk about it all the time? Keep saying Baruch Hashem, I got a parking spot, Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. Maybe he did get you the parking spot. I don't know. I can't know that. That's between you and him. But who is it? He's the makom. He's the ultimate makom. It's the thing that defines our lives. It's the thing that gives value to all that we do. It's the source of life. It's what runs through all things and enlivens us. It's at the times that we say Shehiyanu, who we're thinking about, Shehiyanu v'kiyamanu v'gi'anu, who enlivened us and brought us and kept us to this day. We need more of that, because I'll tell you something. In a world of Chinam, which is a world that we are in, which is a world that our children are growing up in, a hug and love provides the unmatched value of context in one's life. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always ready to take the relationship to the next level. That I can guarantee you. He's always ready to extend the arms in a hug. But He will not hug if we're not prepared to. But when we're ready to take it to the next level, He's right there. He'll take it to the next level. And He will be there. Love is not easy, as we all know. Things hurt more when you're in love. Things matter more when you're in love. But we have been here for 3,000 years. And He has been loving us along all of the way. And even if there have been things that He's had to strike down because they were not working for us, in order to be able to get us through, which is what this day deals with, the love is there and it's unmistakable. The very fact that you are sitting here as a Jewish person today, conscious not only of this day but of your own identity, is expressive of that love. And make no mistake about that. So we look at those things, we look at the things that are lacking it, we look at the things that have become rote and behaviors and infuse them again with meaning and value. And it's okay sometimes if we have to change things in order for it to be able to get there. There have been many changes in the last 3,000 years. We just might not be very aware of them. There have been many. And if we have to change things in order to be able to get back to what's real and what is supple and what is healthy and viable and vibrant, then that's what we do. And that's what Tish'a BeAb empowers us to be able to do. I wish everyone to see B'Nechamat Zion B'Mehera B'Yameinu Amen.